and Amy have been vying for top Patrons' Choice since it started for Dancing Girl. Amy, first, why don't you first tell us your story, because that's an extraordinary thing that everyone needs to know, because it informs everything that you do in your work.
I keep in mind long story, decade-long story, so I'm doing for like 30 seconds, I'll try. So I trained in musical theater my whole life, and you know, as an actress, then like randomly at 18, my senior year of high school, I got a blood clot. Alright, so this is, just stay with me here. My stomach exploded, and I was in a coma for a few months, and I woke up and was told I couldn't eat or drink, and I had no stomach anymore, and I didn't know when or if I'd be able to again, and it turned into over 3 years without being able to eat or drink, and 27 surgeries over the past decade. And then, you know, I could eat, but, you know, things would happen where I, you know, wasn't able to eat for a few months here, wouldn't, you know, doctors, you know, toss that in front of you like it's not a big deal. So anyway, it ended up with lots and lots of hospital stays, and my thing was from day one, you know, I was like a go-getter actress, you know, this world of hospital was very foreign to me.
And I just want to say, you know, I mean, it wasn't just she couldn't eat or drink for a little bit. For 3 years, Amy was not able to drink a drop of water or eat any food. And
Right.
now you are, but ironically, you have to consume
Like 6,000 calories a day because I have so little intestine. I only absorb about like 20%.
right.
But I like eating, so it's okay. You know, and tubes and bags and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, it was very, you know, how do you come to terms with sort of, I was literally in my high school classroom on April 25th, and then the next, well, what felt like the next day, which was a month later, I wake up in a hospital, which, you know, I don't even know what an ICU is, and you know, I can feel like there's things on me and stuff leaking, and, you know, it's a totally different world. So, you know, there were obviously like a lot of things that I couldn't really process. Plus, once I found out I couldn't eat or drink, it was like, what is going on? So, you know, I still have that mentality before this that, like, you know, I'm an actress. I gotta create. I gotta, you know, connect with people that way. You know, that was my way of connecting to the outside world. So like, and I wasn't in the mentality of being like a sick patient, you know, so, you know, I just kept creating and doing, and eventually, you know, my mom right there, I had the best, you know, supportive family that at 18, they stayed in the ICU with me for like all those months and stuff. You know, my mom had always fostered my creativity, and somehow, you know, we got into, you know, just watercolor pencils, you know, which are easy to take in the hospital, which you can like, you know, dip in water and draw stuff, and you know, I just you know, ended up, you know, coloring a lot, mostly just writing like I want to go home, like in a lot of different colors as soon as I could get up into my hands. And then eventually we brought paints in, and I just started like, you know, going crazy and just you know, creating and got into art somehow, and then you know, home hospital, lots of setbacks and stuff, and then in 2008, I had to be air vaxxed from California because a wound just like spontaneously like opened, and so we were stuck in Yale Hospital for a good like 3 months that whole summer. Again, I couldn't eat or drink, and so I think my mom just went home and got like every kind of fabric she could find, and canvases, and I started creating like a painting a day while I was there, actually,
Well, not just paintings. I mean, if you look at,
yeah, so the
I mean, you look those 3 pieces, you can see the amount of different materials that are in those pieces is pretty extraordinary, actually.
yeah, you know, because I don't have like art schooling or anything, I just sort of like being a scavenger, like literally whatever I could glue on, I would, you know, fabric, whatever. Yeah, and soon my art became, you know, it was really just for me, my way of healing. So it reflected like a lot of the trauma I had been through. Like I experienced a lot of just like sort of, you know, polar opposites, like dissociation, like, okay, one like before and one like this. So I did this really early on. This isn't even on canvas, it's just on wood that my mom picked up somewhere. Like sort of just my eye, just like in heartbreak, shattering, and then I had like one half of my face here, like the part before, and then like this other place after, and that was some like vellum. So I just, you know, the liberating part about not knowing anything about art is really I could just do whatever I want, and you know, I would feel, you know, like something after, like, okay, I have no control over my medical situation, but you know, I feel, you know, that was my way of marking, okay, you know, I feel something, you know, because it's easy to sort of just go numb and confused.
So it kept you connected to your emotions.
Right.
And I think what struck me, I didn't know Amy. Brian said an artist, and this happens a lot, Brian writes to me and says an artist wants to hang their work in the restaurant, see if you can, you know, if you want to consider them for a show. And I was looking at Amy's artwork on her site, and I thought, there's something about this whole, you know, the work is unusual, and also there were a lot of pictures of food. Remember that site that you had before this latest one? You know, pictures of food that you would make, which Amy
When I
started
couldn't eat,
cooking
I got
when she
very
couldn't
into cooking, ironically.
She cooked for her family when she couldn't
She
eat.
cooked
But
very
so I
well.
started reading the story, and I think I did
30
until
pounds.
3 in the morning actually. And then I contacted Amy. And the thing about Amy that's amazing is this is one that is all about the trauma. And you could see there's still so much joy in this. Amy is all about joy. And that's what my personal experience of you and working with you is you're just about joy.
Well,
And
the one
should I
thing,
pass this?
yeah, I also have my book of art to pass too, but I want to share a story. You know, when I was in Yale, the first painting that I painted was, this is sort of now my signature piece, like Singing Tree, and like people remarked like, oh, it's so joyous. But when I think of my work, I don't necessarily think like joyous or depressed or positive or negative. Like I think of it as like it's very present. Like one thing I've always had, like whether I was frustrated or whatever, is I'm able to find some kind of like gratitude or something. And when I paint, I actually feel, you know, my aliveness, and I think that's sort of a celebration in itself. So I'd say my paintings are more like a celebration of life. You know, all the, you know, I feel like life is like the pain and the pleasure. So like, it's like an itch I can't scratch, like in my art, that like, even if I do a joyous one, I have to have some kind of teardrop or something. Like I literally can't leave a painting until I have it. So it's like joyous, but you know, there's teardrops and lightning bolts, because you know, I think that's what has made my life so full. You know, I'm finally at the point where I feel like, you know, I'm very happy that I'm grateful that this happened to me, because I have a whole new appreciation, and you know, my life's pretty good now anyway. So I
She's
just
getting married in June. There's her
Yeah, so
fiance. But I, you know, you say, well, I mean, this is when she was not eating or drinking. She's in the hospital. She didn't know what was going to happen. And yes, there are definitely teardrops and lightning bolts. It reflects everything. But I'm going to pass these around and feel. Can they take one? Is that
yeah.
what they're for?
Yeah, also, do you have the white book?
And she'll pass around a book of her work. But you have to just look at this tree. It's called the Singing Tree, and it's just really spectacularly joyful.
And a lot of the texture from like my mixed music is literally from like the toilet paper in Yale. Like I literally,
For when she asked about the studio.
I love like not having a method or rules, because in my art studio, you know, it's such a mess that half of it is just whatever's on the floor. Like I don't throw anything out. So.
And Amy is going, so at Beechwood, we have these arts immersion salons, which are a mix of music, art, performance, film, and culinary art, and it's all around a theme. And Amy's gonna be participating in the one on May 31st, which is called Resilience. And Resilience is a celebration of the human spirit and the resilience of the human spirit and the role the arts plays in that. So I hope you'll all go to the Beechwood Arts site. You can leave your, do we have a piece of paper people could just write their email on if they want to be on the mailing list?
Yes.
Because tickets will be going on sale this week, and we're very limited seating, 60 people, 65 people. So, but that's on May 31st, and so not only did I bring Amy's work and hang it in the restaurant, which is getting all these votes, but I fell in love with her, and I'm also, we just happened to be doing this, this show with the theme Resilience, and I thought, wow, we were meant to meet. And so she's going to be doing that along with 8 other amazing artists and musicians, so it's going to be great. But there was one thing I wanted to show people that you brought. I want to show them this, and then so tell them, this is just a small piece, and you did this very recently, right?
Yeah, so
Tell them what this little square is up here. Tell them about your inchies.
Well, I gotta say, I also wrote a one-woman show about what I've been through, a musical, and there's a line in it I wrote that, like, whatever I do obsessively. And I do, so ever since I got back into art, like, I've been doing my show mostly, for the past few years, but in the past month, I've created, like, 50 paintings. So,
Not kidding.
so yeah, I've been in the street for 4 or 5 hours every morning. So, I do these little inchies where I'll just, make a big collage of a big thing of canvas paper, and then I'll cut it into inch, by inch squares. And then I'll just put like a little like word on it and a little picture on it or something like that. And I have a big piece called Laugh at Fear that's like, that big, and I have like 12 by 12 inches like all over, and Janine came over and she saw my studio and myself and all that, and there's just a lot of me. I like doing just a lot. So she's like, you know, why don't you try even just putting 1 inchy on like a canvas? And I tried a few times and I just like stuck. But anyway, that was my attempt at just putting like 1 inchy. And actually, the texture it's created, I meant to bring material, but I think my brother thought it was just like stuff I had on a bench. Brandon, my fiance, he took me to Home Depot, and I'm always looking for new things I can use. So I got a thing of spackle plaster, and that texture was really just me like rubbing my hands in it for 30 seconds, and
Is that what's on this piece?
yeah, and it was like a $4 jar and done. So I've been using that a lot lately. And then I painted over it, and yeah, now I have a new technique.
The other thing I'd like you to speak about is,
Yes,
this
my
is
tree.
new, but the singing tree is, from a while ago, but just, can you say a little bit about trees and what trees meant to you?
Yeah.
Because it's very significant in your life and your story.
Yeah, even from the time I was little, trees have been my, like I said, they weren't like a metaphor for, being grounded and having peace and beauty. Like, they were like people. Like, they spoke to me, they were my friends. Like, they were like how I would like look to them, and they would send me messages. Like, I've always just been very tuned in to nature, which is like a big part of how I found myself, after the coma, just by trying to center myself in nature again. I used to, as a kid, in high school, I was such a dork. I used to be entertained for hours just watching how they moved, and even though I didn't paint, I danced, so I incorporated into my choreography and stuff like that. And so I've always just been inspired by them. And so in the hospital, the singing tree was the first one I did. Then on the back there was one I've done. But then the second one I did was maybe it's not in here. Oh no, yeah, the end of summer one, which is just on like cheap canvas paper. But like I gave the trees like eyes and faces and noses for the first time, and I was very like, it felt very homey to me, and something drew me to those two characters. So then I did later, it's not in there, then I did like a sequel to that called Winter Meeting, which is like a winter tree and a spring tree. and like they started to have like a relationship sort of. And then so in the past 2 weeks, I've created like.
They become more and more human, I'm noticing.
Well, yeah, well now they're falling in love. You know, I've created.
There's a proposal going on.
So I created like 10 more in the past like 3 weeks of just these 2 trees, on all different kinds of canvases, and like, I get so excited because when I come to the canvas, I have a faint idea, but I always wait for like the paint to talk to me. I mostly like work physically, like I see how I'm moving physically. And I love the surprise in it. You know, for me, if I know exactly how it would turn out, I just like download Art or something. So like I just love having no technique, no filter, just like messing around. You know, Audrey, I could really connect to like you should see me in the studio. I'm like drifting things and spraying things and stomping on things and waving, smacking things.
And her studio is something to see. It's just
so I
like
brought pictures to pass
full.
around. I gotta say, thanks to my mom, you know, I got home from Yale,
We're all past those, you just talk.
yeah, Yale Hospital, like on this art spree. So
Even
made
her
tons of
studio is like all
supplies.
blurry. You probably didn't even take enough time to do.
She's a whirlwind. I call her Amy Whirl.
Yeah, that's right. So we had tons of supplies. So we just left them on the kitchen table. And because I couldn't eat or drink, so like, you know, the kitchen table. But slowly the supplies started like getting like this high until like my parents were like, this isn't gonna happen. So we actually had a storage room downstairs, like a furnace room that we cleared out, and we made this beautiful place. And I'm so lucky that I have this space. There are no windows or anything. It's downstairs, so you can lose all track of time, which isn't good now that I actually have like a life and other things to do. But I mean, and it's messy because there's just a lot of stuff. We try to clean it up periodically, but things get messy.
It's risky. Don't wear a cashmere sweater when you go there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I still owe you for that.
So I
you do not.
use acrylics, and by accident I must have picked up an oil painting. So the first time Janine came to the house, she was looking at something like, oh,
And her
yeah,
beautiful
isn't it?"
cashmere sweater.
And she got like oil paint all over her cashmere sweater. I'm like, no, I use acrylics. And I look at it, I'm like, oh wow, the one paint I got that she's touching is
Don't worry.
No, but it's really, and at the event, we're gonna have, playing on a flat screen, also Amy has performed her musical, Gutless and Grateful. And I think, Amy, what you said to me is, you know, I always was creating. I was creating through dance, through my musical theater, and through writing, and well, you're still writing. I mean, she writes in an incredibly eloquent way.
Well,
You can really express
The
things,
fun part now.
voluminous and eloquent.
The fun part now is I restarted my blog, which is great because I can post updates, but also what I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of creative writing about how that has connected me, you know, to my trauma and healing. And the most wonderful part for me as a performer, you know, you want to connect with people, you want to reach people. So I'm getting letters from people saying how inspiring my writings are and the art. And, you know, for me that's, you know, making the art is only like a quarter of what I love about this. It's really the feedback and coming full circle for me.
Now, you have like cards that you could send people. I mean, you know, you have greeting cards that people could buy. Can you buy those on your website or?
So we are working on that. Everyone nagged Brandon. He's the engineer working on our website. But you know, I've heard like, you know, a lot that like, you know, these would make wonderful prints with like my inspirational story in the back. I want to make an inspirational book that I want published because I've done so much writing. So I would love to get a bunch of, you know, my art and like some of my quotes. So all that will be on my website as soon as we get the licensing and all that stuff. So
Which probably will be tomorrow. You know, I know.
nag him.
On Monday, one Monday, she talked to me about doing a poster from she has a show up at Tuscan Cup in Ridgefield, and Amy was talking to me about doing a poster, and I said, well, maybe you should do some, you know, kind of greeting cards with a story on the back someone could, you know, send to others that are struggling. And she said, that's a great idea. And the next day I got an email from her saying, do you think this image would work? And then when I went to answer her the next day, she said, "Oh, I already got the cards. They'll be in tomorrow morning."
And I also wrote to like 100 green card manufacturers that day.
Incredible. Questions for Amy?
The little squares that are those cheese that you're talking about?
Yeah, I
Like
think
tiny
that's-
little paintings?
Yeah,
Are they
yeah.
really an inch square?
Yeah, they're inch by inch, yeah. They're fun because, you know, you can just make them as
What do
you
you do?
go.
Some were like 1 1/4.
Cardboard or something?
Canvas paper.
They do have inchy canvases.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, I do.
I just have to say, you have such unencumbered energy. Thank God I'm sitting down because I'm blown away
Thank you.
with your energy and your, I do a lot of work with preschoolers because they're honest, they have no caca running around in their brains, and their style and form and everything is so wonderful. And because of what you've been through, it's allowed all this beautiful, unencumbered feeling and energy to come out, and I'm just blown away.
Well, I gotta say, teaching nursery school is probably one of my most inspired.
Yeah,
periods.
well, they're the best.
Right.
Till we get our hands on them, and then that's a different issue.
Well, one thing I'm proud of through all this is I've sort of kept my childlike innocence, which you can see in my art, but I also have like the old soul knowing of like, yes, I've been through experiences, but I don't let that sort of jade me or anything. So I think what I'm seeing more and more in that work is like I still have that like whimsical nature, but I see my later stuff is becoming a little more sophisticated, a little more.
Just for her, she used
but-
to call me.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say this, Amy, it just came to me. You know, Amy always was kind of an old soul even before this happened. Well, you know, a lot of her friends were in People magazine. She was struggling with, you know, and this is before any of this happened. And I remember when you were 15, you wrote that beautiful song, My Dream.
Yeah.
You know,
so
fully
true.
orchestrated and all that about trees. And it really was, it kind of, I don't want to say it was predicted, but it kind of like brings back everything that's happened since then was really in that song.
I wrote it. I was taking a nature walk one day, and then when I write a lot of songs for this one, I'm really proud of. I was just fantasizing and daydreaming, which I was used to do in my walks. And I'd be like, you know, all these trees are so like rounded, and we always look to them as like this like anchor and stuff. But really, what if they were just like, you know what? Like, I hate this. I just want to fly. So I just wrote a song about like this fantasy about trees one day just taking off and flying to the sky and what that would look like.
Beautiful song.
Any other questions for Amy? Well, thank you so much, Amy, and I look forward to being at Beechwood on the 31st. Thank you. And thank you for all the